It's a little after 3 in the morning, and you're awake. Not sick, not stressed, just awake, staring at the ceiling in the dark, waiting to fall back asleep, quietly furious about how tired you'll be tomorrow. You've been told this is a problem, a disorder even. Something's wrong with your sleep. But what if that 3 a.m. waking isn't broken at all? What if your body is doing exactly what it evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to do? And it's the 8 hours in one block thing that's actually the weird modern experiment? Because for almost all of human history, nobody slept the way you're trying to sleep tonight. There was no 8 hours straight. People slept in two separate shifts, with an hour or two of wakefulness deliberately built into the middle of the night. They had a name for it. And when you understand why we slept this way, and why we suddenly stopped, you'll never panic at a 3 a.m. waking again. In 2001, a historian at Virginia Tech named Roger E. Kirch published a discovery he'd stumbled into almost by accident, buried in centuries of old documents, and it quietly rewrote what we thought we knew about the human night. E. Kirch wasn't even looking for sleep. He was researching the history of nighttime when he kept tripping over a strange phrase, again and again, in diaries, court records, medical texts, and novels. The phrase was first sleep, and a little later in the same passages, second sleep. At first he assumed it was a figure of speech. It wasn't. People were describing two distinct chunks of sleep as casually as we'd mentioned breakfast and lunch. There was your first sleep, then a period of being awake in the dark, then your second sleep. This wasn't insomnia. This wasn't a problem. This was just how the night worked, and the references weren't rare. Here's what everyone assumes: that 8 consecutive hours of sleep is the natural biological human default, and that anything else is a modern failure of stress, screens, or caffeine. E. Kirch found the opposite. He eventually collected more than 500 references to segmented sleep, spanning centuries and stretching across cultures. It's in Homer. It's in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. It shows up in African, South Asian, and South American accounts. Medieval prayer manuals literally scheduled devotions for the gap between the two sleeps. Doctors of the era gave advice on which position to lie in during your first sleep versus your second. So, what did people do during that hour or two awake in the middle of the night? Pretty much everything. They prayed, they reflected on their dreams, which were fresh and vivid, right there in the dark. They talked quietly with whoever was next to them. They got up, tended the fire, checked on animals, even visited neighbors. Physicians of the time noted rather pointedly that it was also the most popular hour for couples to conceive children, because you were rested, relaxed, and not exhausted from a full day. The waking wasn't a bug in the night. It was one of the most valued parts of it. But this raises an obvious question. Was this just a cultural habit, or is two-shift sleep actually written into our biology? In the early 1990s, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware, working at the National Institute of Mental Health, decided to test exactly that. He took a group of people and did something simple but radical. He took away artificial light. For a month, his subjects spent 14 hours every night in darkness, roughly the length of a winter night before electricity, before lamps, before the glow of a phone on the nightstand. For the first few weeks, they slept the way we all do, catching up on a lifetime of exhaustion. But then, something remarkable happened. Their sleep spontaneously split in two. They'd sleep for around 4 hours, wake naturally, lie peacefully awake for 1 to 2 hours, and then fall back into a second 4-hour sleep. Nobody told them to. Their bodies just did it, the moment the artificial day was removed. Quick question while we're here. Are you someone who wakes up in the night and can't figure out why? Drop a 3 a.m. in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how many of you this describes. And if this is already changing how you think about your own sleep, the like button really does help. Okay, here's the part that gets strange. During that quiet waking interval, Vare found the subjects weren't groggy or anxious. Their bodies were in an unusual hormonal state. Calm, meditative, flooded with prolactin, the same hormone associated with the deep contentment of resting animals. In other words, that middle of the night wakefulness wasn't a failure of sleep. It was a distinct, evolved state of restful consciousness, arguably the calmest your brain ever gets. Which forces the real question. If this is our natural pattern, why did almost everyone on Earth abandon it? The answer is light. Specifically, cheap artificial light. As streets and homes lit up, first with gas lamps, then electricity, the night got shorter and more useful. Evenings became productive time. Bedtimes crept later. That 14-hour block of darkness collapsed into 7 or 8 hours, and there was simply no room left for two sleeps and a waking in between. Within a couple of generations, the first sleep and second sleep vanished so completely that the phrases fell out of the language entirely, which is exactly why a Kirch didn't recognize them at first. And here's the quiet tragedy in it. As the memory of segmented sleep disappeared, waking in the night stopped being normal and started being a symptom. We invented a word for it, wrapped it in anxiety, and began treating a 300,000-year-old pattern as a disorder to be medicated away. Which brings us back to you at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. There's a specific, well-documented pattern that sleep researchers today call middle-of-the-night waking. And for a lot of people, it looks suspiciously like a fragment of that ancient two-shift rhythm trying to reassert itself. The problem usually isn't the waking. The problem is the panic about the waking, the clock watching, the frustration, the stress hormones that flood in the moment you think I shouldn't be awake right now. That's the part that actually keeps you up. So the next time you surface in the dark and everything is quiet, you don't have to treat it as a malfunction. You can treat it the way most humans who ever lived would have, as the natural seam between two sleeps. Don't reach for the phone. That's the artificial light that erased this pattern in the first place. Just lie there. Let your mind drift and let the second sleep come, the way it came for a few 100,000 years before anyone decided it shouldn't. So, why did ancient humans sleep in two shifts? Because in a world lit only by fire, the night was long, and the human body naturally fills a long night with two sleeps and a pool of calm wakefulness in between. We didn't evolve to sleep 8 hours straight. We evolved to sleep, wake in the dark, and sleep again. The 8-hour block isn't ancient wisdom. It's a side effect of the light bulb. If that reframed something for you, subscribe. One strange forgotten piece of being human explained every week. And here's where we go next. That ancient world had no artificial light, no 8-hour sleep, and also no hospitals, no castes, no painkillers. So picture this. You're 30,000 years ago, you fall, and the largest bone in your body snaps clean in half. No surgeon, no morphine. By every rule of nature, you should die where you lie. And yet the fossil record is full of ancient humans who broke that exact bone and lived. How? That's next. I'll see you there.